What's the weirdest thing people get offended by? Story 1. Standing up for yourself within reason. People will forever get offended for no longer being able to take advantage of you. And they act like that's the weird part. Story 2. I'm in the U.S. South, and I'm ma'am, and so pretty much every stranger I come across in the wild. It's just what I've grown up with and is meant as being respectful. We get a lot of tourists, and occasionally ma'am a woman, and shell flip thinking I'm calling her old. And if I serve some guy, they'll think it's like a sarcastic challenge. On the flip side, any locals who you don't ma'am, and so will get offended. So I'm in a pickle every tourist season, living in constant fear of ma'ams and sirs. Story 3. Food subreddits can be some of the salty subs on this site. People get so worked up over images of food, especially if that food item slightly deviates from their purest interoperation. Don't believe me? Make an English breakfast, but instead of normal toast, use Texas toast. Also leave out the tomatoes. I guarantee you the comments section will be buttery drama. Story 4. When you get someone's dog's gender wrong, everyone keeps calling my black lab mix a boy good boy. Hey buddy, I don't care, but when I got a little fluffy white dog named Tinkles wrong at the park, a lady bit my head off. Tinkles is a boy. Alright, chill. Story 5. Way too often people take it personally when the rules apply to them. Example, sometime back my mom was working in a clothing store. A woman comes in and asks to return exchange some stuff. Cool, no problem. My mom asked to see her receipt. She shows it and she bought the clothing 3 years ago. The return policy was 30 days. My mom was like, oh, I'm sorry, you bought this too long ago. Our policy states you dieta. She freaking flipped, started yelling, calling her racist. The woman was black. My mom is white, until she asked to speak to the manager. People, please. Almost 100 of the time, you're not exempt from any rules. And that is not the fault of the person enforcing the rules. Be reasonable. And please do not blow up on retail workers. Edit while lots of karma edit too. Okay, well, I have an award. Thank you so much, Reddit. Story 6. If you give someone a compliment out of the ordinary. Most people don't expect kindness and think you are being sarcastic. Sad to see that being nice is not expected by people. Story 7. The idea of wanting other people to have a better quality of life. The other day, I said that I think flu shots should be free in the United States, and my dad, a healthcare provider, was outraged. I might as well have said dismantle the military-industrial complex to fund a mandatory socialist healthcare scheme. Instead of, I feel like the U.S. could afford to give everyone a free flu shot who wanted one. Same with things like school lunches. It feels like now, if you even raise the specter of something like that, there's someone foaming at the mouth about how you're a commie or a socialist. Story 8. People who get if you say no problem when they thank you. Some dude who I imagine must have a very fulfilling life wrote a whole article about how rude it is to say no problem instead of you're welcome. Story 9. I find it very weird when people get offended on someone else's behalf, especially when it comes to other cultures and ethnicities, as if they don't think they are capable of speaking up themselves or something. Story 10. Being offended when describing a death by saying the person died or is dead instead of passed on or passed away. Denying it won't make them come back. Story 11. The word black, not even used in the context relating to a human. I've had so many people say, oh, that's racist, like what? I was talking about crayons. Story 12. As someone who's bi, I can't see why people get offended. When someone says to a guy, do you have a girlfriend? There are people who get offended by that. I get it all the time, and instead of getting offended, I just correct them and tell them I have a boyfriend. Sure, it's annoying, but it's only logical to assume that a guy is heterosexual, because that's more like than them being gay-pan or ace. Story 13. Honestly, this whole cultural appropriation thing is a bit weird to me. I get that it's offensive to use skin color, etc. as costumes. But if you actually like an aesthetic of a different culture, why would you not use it as a garment? If we want to be an inclusive society, we should also all take part in cultural customs and make it our own. All it does is divide us more by forbidding other ethnicities to take part of cultural aesthetics. Story 14. When you don't like the same things they like. A former coworker of mine had me try pizza from his favorite restaurant. I told him I didn't like how the cheese tasted. He got upset and said, okay, well, I'm never going to share food with you again. Story 15. Theoretical and hypothetical scenarios. You can say if I were to stab you with an overheated knife, would the wound cauterize itself? And people stare at you in shock as if you actually stabbed someone a moment ago and are admitting to it. It's a hypothesis for a reason. Edit, no, I did not actually say this, but thanks for proving my point. You give a hypothetical scenario, and people comment like you actually said it or did it based on technicality. Story 16. Not what, but more like how constantly seeking out petty things online about other people's lives to get outraged about that don't really have much, if any, impact on their lives. It's the internet. Oh, well, calm down, like walk away. Go make a snack or read a book. There are real things to be pissed about. Yeah, sure, but you're choosing to spend your time digging up to be mad about, and that just isn't healthy. I used to have a roommate that I swear was addicted to being sad about animal welfare stories, the same as some people get addicted to. Every day, a new tragedy. We had a big yard. She had her own happy pets to love on, plenty of games and media, a whole internet, and inevitably she'd just be in her room working herself up over a charity she had already donated to. Drove us nuts. The current trend of outrage and cancel culture reminds me of her. Story 17 elbows, OB the table. While other things at least have some implication, I legitimately can't understand why this is an issue. Oh, and hats indoors, though I assume that started as some sort of religious thing. Story 18, when women get offended because a man held the door open or offers to hold her bags, etc. As a lady myself, I am just so appreciative. It's not that people are saying you can't do something. They're just being nice, thoughtful men. Get off your high horse and take a chill pill, is what I want to say when I hear someone say, I don't need a man. I'm perfectly capable when someone was just trying to do something nice. Story 19, telling other people's children they're misbehaving or stopping them from doing something before they get hurt. People either don't want you talking to their children, period, or they feel like you're basically stating they can't control their kid. Just to give an example, but last week while walking my dogs, this mom had 5 children and her 3 boys who really young were chasing Canadian geese. Geese are mean bastards and can hurt adults, let alone children. Told her boys to stop before they get hurt, and mom death stared me and seemed to take offense I had the gall to stop them from having fun. Story 20, when you complain about your bad parents. They act as if I insulted their own parents. Newsflash, awful and abusive parents exist, and people have a right to complain about them. Story 21, there was a Marmite advert that was parodying animal rescue neglect programs. I wasn't trying to make a point, yet it got a lot of complaints. Here it is. Story 22, when you make even the slightest criticism of capitalism, you can criticize any other economic system, even make fun of it. And that's good. We have to be aware of the flaws of every system. But when you say something against capitalism, people get mad, and suddenly you're lazy, greedy, and envious of other people's wealth. It is not like my arguments can't be refuted, but rhetorical fallacies doesn't make a point. Story 23, someone breastfeeding their baby in public. My girl has been tutored several times, and it really pisses her off. The baby's got to eat. Why does it bother some people? Story 24, I once got called a racist because I don't really like chocolate Oreos unless they're double stuffed. The cocoa flavor is just too rich for me. Otherwise. Story 25, yawning. Had a teacher that would go crazy if you yawn in her class. I just never understood her point of view. It's like she, though yawning, was a deliberate insult rather than an involuntary action of someone whose brain needs more oxygen. Story 26, when you haven't seen a show or a movie they like. Why are you upset? You could be introducing someone to their new favorite thing, Lucky 10,000 style. Story 27, carbonara. Any food that has become traditional with a capital T. And then apparently you can make 0 changes or additions to, or suffer the wrath of that's not a carbonara paella from Italian, Spaniards, Americans whose great-granddad was Italian pedants in general. Story 28, hearing facts and logic. Like, come on, dude. Proof is right there, and you say it's all a conspiracy. What will people gain from creating this conspiracy? Story 29, I once had an old lady come up to me when I was reading my Kindle at a bus stop and angrily tell me it's because of those things that all the libraries are being closed. Story 30, I think it's got to be breastfeeding in public. Then a same couple holding hands. If these things bother you, you have way too much free time to get offended by that. Doesn't affect you at all. Story 31, just saw someone tweet about this sweet lady that asked someone and their partner if they identified as gentlemen or ladies. The tweet was meant to be highlighting about how great and sweet it was that this woman was aware of these things, but I was disappointed to see in the comments a lot of people were more bothered about the fact that the OP called her a sweet old lady, and the OP had to apologize to everyone saying that it was wrong of her to call the woman an old lady. Honestly, it just annoyed me that some people can only see the negatives and never the positives. I'm sure the lady might not have minded, but it's just the way other people went about it that rubbed me the wrong way. Story 32, pointing out legitimate flaws in religious beliefs. Like, most Christians don't agree with the whole Bible, but sometimes they'll get offended when someone points out all the horrible stuff in there. What do you expect? It's thousands of years old. Story 33, they're beautiful and natural, and yet so many Karens get upset at people breastfeeding in public. It's not for a tiny human am I. It would be if my husband was doing it. Stop being nasty. I got 2-1. People who think using a period to end a message is passive-aggressive too. People who think it's unfair when you challenge their dehumanizing conservative ideas. Story 34. I recently learned that some Americans are offended by the term gringo. Now, I don't know if in the US it is used as a derogatory term, but here in Mexico, it's just a synonym of American. Story 35. I most of the time use gender-neutral pronouns at work. This is both because I don't always know the people I'm talking to on the phone or by email at all, and I rarely know any of my clients or coworkers on a personal level. I also participate in communities that have lots of trans and binary members, and just do so out of habit. A lot of people seem to think I'm referring to them as an object or less personal, but a lot of the time I'm just not sure if the Corey or Steph I've only communicated through email with is a man or woman, and wouldn't want to address them the wrong way. It's also possible that they are trans and binary, and respecting that can make a world of difference to them. Story 36. When people ask when me and my husband will have children, and I tell them we want, and they try to end with "you'll change your mind," and then I tell them no, we want, and you're not the one to decide that. They just won't accept that we don't want children and we want change our minds, and that's the end of discussion. Story 37. I want to preface this by saying I'm a trans girl. I find it weird when people get offended by someone assuming their gender. I don't look anything like a girl, so I'm not surprised when people incorrectly assume I'm a guy. I think ideally everyone should use gender-neutral pronouns until they know what someone's pronouns are, but that's unrealistic. If someone looks like a certain gender and is assumed to be that gender, they should just politely correct the other person. Story 38. Cuss words. When I was in 3rd grade, I said in class, the teacher got mad and reprimanded me. I told her I can say, and it's okay, but means the same thing, and if I say that I'm in trouble. Story 39. Reading. Apparently, there are a lot of people who feel that you reading a book is somehow a comment on their intelligence, and so they make some comment on getting their learning from life. It floors me every time it happens. Story 40. I always think it's simultaneously hilarious and infuriating when someone starts to talk to someone else completely unprovoked, and then get downright pissed when the second person talks back. Story 41. Different opinions. A comedian once said that most of society's problems are kept alive by a failure to acknowledge nuance, like 2 tennis players hitting beautifully executed shots from either end of separate tennis courses. People just need to think clearly and rationally, but most importantly, empathetically. Too quickly do people dismiss an argument or ignore it at their own detriment without considering an alternative. Story 42. Being called ma'am. It's a term of respect, has nothing to do with age. FFS. I call my 2- and 4-year-old girls ma'am to show them respect and politeness. Story 43. Any critique of capitalism. McCarthy did his job so well that all these years later, you can still spark a die commie witchy hunt for even slightly suggesting the whole quarterly earnings reports workers' rights thing might be getting out of hand. Story 44. Telling your new girlfriend your concerns and worries about new relationships and watching them get offended, usually leading to the whole "well, I'm not like that" spiel. They'd rather combat it rather than accept it and tell you they understand. Huge red flag. Story 45. I've never understood why asking for someone's age is such a horrible thing. I've had friends I've known for 5 months get mad at me for asking how old they are. Story 46. The idea that different races is a real thing. We are all the exact same species. If and when everyone lives with that in the back of their mind, we can start to move toward a better life as a whole, be kind to one another, and show some love. Story 47. I find it laughable that people get angry when called out on their bullshit. Bro, it was just a joke, bro. Me hinting that the globalists control the world and drawing a Star of David around a dollar sign was just a joke, bro. Chill. I know it was like the dozenth time, but it's just a joke, bro. Freedom of speech. See cancel culture. Story 48. Someone else's sexuality. Like him, but I constantly have people telling me I'm not pretty sure I am, or it's a mental illness, nope, not possible, or you've never tried it. So how do you know you won't like it? I've tried it. Didn't like it. Basically getting offended over something that I have no control over and something that doesn't even affect them. I guarantee it'll either get downvoted to or get a bunch of comments saying what I wrote above. If I don't, then I have severely misjudged humanity. Story 49. Getting pronouns wrong the first time around. Please, I'm only human. I don't know if you're a they, he, or she. I'm just guessing off your looks like I've done with every other person in my life. I'm literally treating you equally just like you wanted. Story 51. That most people will disagree with is blackface. Like I can't go as my hero for Halloween because 70 years ago, someone a similar skin tone to me mocked people with a similar skin tone to who I want to dress up as by painting their face black. And, I mean, it just doesn't make sense, but anyway, people are idiots. People get so worked up about it, and it harms nobody. Story 51. The LGBT community. It's my life, and it'll live the way I want to. If it bothers you that 2 men or 2 women want to marry each other, you can just deal with it. If it bothers you that I, biologically a man, can become a woman through surgery and hormones, you can also deal with it. Giving me rights doesn't somehow take away from your rights. I don't like it when people chew loudly, but I don't fight against people having the right to do so. Story 52, as a realtor, when I tell people that I need to remove most of their clutter decorations antiques, I hire professional photographers to do this work, and prep takes the longest. Sometimes people are very offended. I ask them to remove their antiques that are literally covering the fireplace mantle or all the decorations. Buyers don't want to see sellers' stuff. They want to see the house. Story 53, I used to work as a pizza delivery driver and got chewed out once because this guy was pissed that I had to collect his money before handing him the pizza. Said I was treating him like a criminal. Story 54, dark humor. ITS literally, supposed to offend people. And then they say, I love dark humor. But that was too far, you racist. Like WDYM, dark humor has no limits. If you get offended, easily stay away from it. Story 55, people who get offended by people who talk about their pets like they're their kids. Okay, many find this annoying, but a lot of people are specifically offended by it and feel the need to point out that it's completely different than having a kid. I mean, people call their pets human best friends all the time, and no one needs to explain how human friends have different dynamic with you than animal friends. Obviously, people are emphasizing their role as their animal's caregiver, which is similar to the role of a parent in a broad sense. What's the big deal if they want to use some more parental terminology for their own amusement? People sometimes act like it's a huge offense to the kid or to them, when really it's not. Like most of the pet parents in question even want it to be literally a kid. Story 56, some are offended by any level of disagreement with any political belief, as if they are personally attacked when I deviate even slightly from one of their views. Story 57, honestly, people get offended by what genitals I have. Not even when I'm trying to go to the bathroom. Either I try not to use public restrooms anyways. Who cares if I got a or a vagina? Unless you plan on seeing it, it's not your business. Story 58, I think it's weird that people get offended by questions like about race or culture. A lot of people consider asking questions to be a microaggression, but how is anyone supposed to learn without asking questions? Story 59, I've seen people get offended because I told them they should do basic research on a political candidate and not just vote for someone solely because of their political party or color of their skin. You can quickly tell who failed those research projects in 5th grade. Story 60, riding a unicycle. Back in college, I learned how to ride one and had my own. I also had a bike which I used to get around campus, but it got stolen within 2 months despite the bike lock I put on it. So since I had a unicycle, I used that to get a class instead because I was allowed to take it into class where it would be much harder to steal, at least without me noticing. Some people would get really offended seeing me on the thing though. I'd occasionally overhear people saying about me when I didn't have a unicycle with me. Not realizing that I was the guy, some actually try to get unicycles banned on campus, just unicycles, not bikes or skateboards or anything else. I was one of the few people that unicycled on campus, but I knew all of them, and we were all really careful not to run anyone off the sidewalk, especially since we knew that's all it would take for people to get us banned because there was already some animosity towards us for some reason. For us, unicycling was just a fun and efficient way to get around, but I guess some people felt personally offended by the thought that we existed. Story 61, professors who are women who get accidentally called Mrs. by a student who just graduated high school. It's force of habit, not the patriarchal relegation of women to a subordinate status. Chill the out. Story 62, setting your own boundaries. Sure, it's all in the way you do it, but when you simply give people a straight answer to something they don't want to hear, especially no, that's not possible somehow, really knows how to strike a nerve. Story 63, saying either Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. Everyone imagines the other side is implying things they simply aren't. People are killing each other because we refuse to actually have a dialogue. Story 64, every single behavior-related custom I feel like is specifically created to be offended about nothing. It never makes sense if you actually use your brain. Wearing a hat indoors is rude because it indicates you want to leave soon, huh? No, it indicates that that person wants to wear a hat. Placing your fork and knife over your plate is rude because it means you didn't like your meal and don't want more. Oh my God, I just had to put them somewhere. These 2 examples came to my mind, but there are many more. It's honestly stupid. How about if you want to know someone's thoughts, you just ask them instead of making them up? Edit every single is not our. Story 65, I had a friend that said just bring a game and some alcohol to the party, and then got mad that that is all I brought. So maybe getting mad about things to say. Same goes for people that say I don't want a gift for Valentine's, birthday, Christmas, and then get upset when they get nothing. LOL. Story 66 words, that happened to sticks and stones. He called me an insult here. So what? Deal with it like an adult. Walk away. Don't waste energy on those people. Story 67, workers saying happy holidays to customers around the holidays. One early December, my 35-year-old conservative asshat of a brother was ordering food at a Baja Fresh, and after getting his receipt, was wished happy holidays by the cashier. He turns back around, looking dead serious, and loudly corrects her ITS Merry Christmas, and proceeded to spend the rest of lunch bitching about the persecution against Christians in this country. All because an employee at a quick-service restaurant was trained to be inclusive during a holiday season that includes multiple religious traditions. Story 68 being called a name that isn't theirs. What bothers me about it is everyone has done this, called someone by the wrong name, but almost any time we do it, like especially calling your current, so your ex's name, we all know we're not doing it because we're thinking of that other person or anything like that. Most of the time it means nothing and isn't even a Freudian slip, if you will. Imagine how you feel when you call someone the wrong name, or you heard their name wrong, and instead of James you heard Jean, or instead of Mary you heard Maria. So why give someone it happens? It doesn't mean anything most of the time. Story 69, when you tell someone you are gay and they say something like, oh, well, I'm not. Then you say they aren't your type. They always seem upset for some reason. Story 70, who other people love, like WTF. Why do you think you get a say in who another person falls in love with? I've never understood that. It isn't affecting you in any way. Why can't people just be happy for those who are in love and happy together? So bizarre that people think they have the right to dictate how other people live their lives. Story 71, I worked in a store and asked a group of women, how are you guys today? One of them complained to the manager because they were not guys. I think her name was Karen.